The world's great novels. The NBC University of the Air presents the third installment of a four-part radio edition of Arnold Bennett's masterpiece of fiction, The Old Wives' Tale, another in the series of books that live, the world's great novels.
London, the thousands of cabs, the fabulous streets, the general roar, like an obsession of unreality. But above all, the delicious clutch of terror at her heart. Who was this rash, mad Sophia? Surely not herself. Surely not Sophia Baines, who had run away from home to marry the captivating Gerald Scales.
What she doesn't know is that he has no intention of marrying her.
Sophia's soberly rich dress had a countrified air as she waited, ready for the streets, in the drab bedroom of the London Hotel on the afternoon of the 1st of July, 1866. But there was nothing of the provincial in that beautiful face, nor in that bearing at once shy and haughty, and her eager heart soared beyond geographical boundaries. Then there was a knock on the door.
Come in.
Well, little girl, here I am.
Oh, Gerald.
He approaches her with factitious ease. He kisses her. Then again. He feels the secret loyalty of her soul ascending to him.
I've got no one but you now.
He doesn't like that. It reminds him of responsibilities instead of privileges.
No one but me, darling. I know that, little girl. Well, are you ready?
Yes.
Very well. Let's go out and see the Doré pictures at the National Gallery.
She's shocked. Dory's exhibit. Not marriage.
But what about the wedding?
Oh, I was just going to tell you. It can't be done here. There have been some changes in the rules. I only found out for certain late last night, but I've ascertained that it'll be as simple as ABC before the English consul at Paris. And I've got the tickets for us to go over tonight as we arranged.
No. Oh, no.
Oh, no, what?
We can't possibly go like that.
But don't I tell you it'll be all right? Besides, I've got our tickets and all.
Why didn't you tell me sooner?
But how could I? Have we had a single minute alone?
Oh.
Now, come now. It'll be all right. You'll travel in the ladies' saloon on the steam packet.
She does not stir. He bends and touches the back of her neck with his lips.
I'll thank you not to touch me.
But really, you must be reasonable. Oh, now, come along, little girl. Let's go out and enjoy ourselves. I assure you that everything will be all right in Paris.
That's what you said about coming to London. And stop calling me little girl.
Oh, very well. If you don't choose to believe what I say. Only, just what do you intend to do?
I can tell you what I shan't do. I shan't go to Paris.
That's not my question. I want to know what you will do.
Now they look at each other with mutual hatred.
What's that got to do with you?
It's got everything to do with me.
Well, you can go and find out.
Go? You mean that?
Of course I mean it.
The coward in him urges him to take advantage of her ignorant, helpless pride and leave her at her word. He sneers.
I am to go?
Yes.
Of course, if you order me to leave you, I must. Can I do anything for you?
Nothing?
You're sure? Well, then, goodbye.
I suppose you'd leave me here without money or anything?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Here, 5 sovereigns.
Do you think I'll take your odious money?
Her first impulse is to throw the money in his face, but she flings it into a corner instead.
Pick them up.
No, thanks.
Only a few minutes before, and they had exuded tenderness with every gesture, like a perfume. Then her dream was utterly shattered.
I have been a wicked girl.
Sophia faced the fact. The strict notions of her mother had been right after all. It was she who had been wrong. But whatever happened, her pride would not let her return home.
What would happen to her? London. Sophia was as helpless as a rabbit in London. She thought of suicide. Then loneliness like black midnight overwhelmed her, and she wept, but without sobbing. Gerald Scales walked about the Strand. She had told him to go, and he had gone. He would go to Paris alone and find another amusement. She had nearly made a fool of him, but he was not the man to be made a fool of. He had kept his dignity intact, so he said to himself.
Yet all the time, his dignity and his pride also were bleeding, dropping invisible blood along the length of the Strand pavement.
He wanted her. He wanted her with an excessive desire. He hated to think that he had been balked. He hated to think that she would remain immaculate. Suddenly, he was ready to pay any price in order to be able to say to himself that he had accomplished what he had set his heart on.
Oh, well, I suppose I must go through with it.
Hurriedly, he returned to the hotel. He did not reflect how Sophia, that fragile slip of the Bain stock, unconsciously drawing upon the accumulated strength of generations of honest living, had put a defeat upon him. He found her crumpled and weeping at the foot of the bed.
Sophia, dear. We'll be married. I'll arrange it somehow.
Oh, Gerald, thank you, thank you. I really couldn't have gone to Paris with you without being married. I really couldn't.
No, of course you couldn't. It was I who was wrong. Now, may I kiss you?
Yes.
They embraced. Gerald resumes his perfection in her eyes, but far off in some remote cavern of his brain, is saying to himself,
I shall have her. I shall have her.
On arriving in Paris, Sophia, with the ring on her triumphant finger, timidly mentioned the subject of frocks. Gerald, too, thirsted to see her in French clothes. He knew some of the shops and ateliers in the Rue de la Paix, and she emerged uncompromisingly French. From her gown of blue taffetas to her flat caput like a baby's bonnet, which allowed her hair to escape in front and her great chignon behind. As their carriage slipped through the wide gloom of the Champs-Élysées into the brilliant Paris awaiting them, she thought,
Oh, such intense, throbbing joy of life. One longs for more and more pleasure now and forever.
Gerald, too, was enjoying himself. To him, Sophia's half-formed intelligence was a diverting toy.
Sit down, Chirac. Meet my wife. Sophia, Monsieur Chirac, an old friend of mine when I lived in Paris before. Garçon. And what about the execution they're going to have, Chirac? What's the criminal's name? Nicolas. Ah, yes. And they say he's young. And he killed the celebrated Claudine. Huh? What did he kill her for, Sophia? Because she wouldn't give him enough money. So, he killed her and took all her jewels. They say she was afraid for a long time that he meant to kill her. What's that, Sophia? Then why did she see him? Because she liked being afraid, Goose. Some women only enjoy themselves when they're terrified. Am I right, Chirac? Garçon, 2 more brandies. Well, tomorrow is the great day in Auxerre.
Auxerre?
Yes, the execution of that criminal. What's his name? Nicolas. Chirac's going as a newspaper man, and he thinks himself jolly lucky. So I think I'll go with him.
Surely. Not to see the execution.
Why not? I've always wanted to see an execution, especially with the guillotine.
But why do you want to see an execution?
It just so happens that I do want to see an execution. It's a fancy of mine, that's all. I don't know that there's any reason necessary.
You mean you're going to leave me here alone?
Well, I don't see why my being married should prevent me from doing something that I've always wanted to do you?
Oh, of course not.
Very well, then. You can either stay here or come with me.
Yes, Mr. Chirac. Gerald says I won't be in the way. And my husband has always wanted to see an execution.
As psychological experience, it will be very interesting to observe oneself in such circumstances.
To observe oneself under such circumstances. Not only to observe oneself, but to observe one's husband and the brutal, corrupt, and shameless crowd of spectators. Yes, and the execution itself. To Sophia, it was to grow into an appalling nightmare.
The train is hot, noisy, dusty.
If only the soot didn't fly into the open windows. It'll ruin my beautiful gown, Gerald.
The passengers grow limp and abandoned. At Auxerre, they pour out of the train like bacteria.
I'm frightened, Gerald. Now, where are we going?
The cabman furiously lashes his horse until at last they halt in a small square in front of a repellent building, dark and malodorous.
The Hotel de Vézelay.
A small, mean bedroom with but a single dirty bed.
We can't both sleep in this bed, surely?
The bed is for her. He has no intention of going to bed. For him, the night is too exciting.
You mean, Gerald, that in the morning they're going to cut the man's head off right here under our window?
Now they are eating dinner with 40 others at the same table who are gorging themselves like pigs.
No, thank you, Mr. Chirac. I just can't eat.
The juxtaposition of old men and young women in pairs, pausing to kiss over the greasy food.
Oh, Gerald, look at them. Why, they're like animals.
Gerald leaves her at the bedroom door with a self-conscious nod. She partly undresses and lies down. Instantly, the hotel is like a sounding box. Through the flimsy walls, she is spared nothing.
Why did Gerald leave me alone in this odious room, listening all night to those obscene people?
The cool gray beginnings of dawn are in the sky, and every detail of the square is visible.
Perhaps I should go to the window and see all that's to be seen. That's absurd. I don't want to go to the What's that?
She goes to the window and looks out. Gendarmes on horses are pushing back the crowd. She sees Gerald talking almost vivaciously to an elaborately clad girl.
Why, there's Gerald with a girl. I wonder how such a girl's been brought up. What her parents think or know.
Now workmen in blue blouses begin to assemble the guillotine.
What was the name of the murderer? Oh, yes, Nicolas.
At the sight of the shiny triangular steel blade being hoisted up the groove of the machine, the crowd bursts into a refrain. To test the guillotine, the executioner pulls a lever, and the great glittering axe falls with a thud. She can no longer see Gerald. Where is he?
Perhaps he's coming up to the room to see if I'm all right.
Gerald does not come. They are bringing the condemned.
But he's so very young. And his face is so incredibly white.
The priest with the condemned begins the prayer for the dying.
Oremus,
Suddenly, Sophia sees Gerald coming out of a house opposite, followed by the girl. He leaves her.
There's Gerald, struggling to get near the guillotine. Oh, I can't stand this.
She cannot move. She can hardly move even her eyes. The criminal looks like a doll in a tragedy. Now they are slitting his shirt.
Why do I stay here?
She waits, horror-stricken. She sees nothing but the gleaming triangle of metal suspended above the victim.
It was Chirac, the newspaper man, who brought Gerald back to the hotel room. Gerald staggered past her and sank with a groan onto the bed, as flaccid as a sick hound, and as disgusting as an aged drunkard. He did not possess even spirit enough to play the role of roisterer to the end. And she was bound to him. With all her ignorance of the world, she could see that nobody but an errant imbecile could have brought her to the present pass. He slept heavily. Suddenly, she caught sight of Gerald's wallet sticking out of the breast pocket of his soiled coat. She took it. It contained English banknotes for 200 pounds. While he slept like an offensive beast, she sewed the banknotes into the lining of her skirt. The empty wallet she threw out of the window. Four years passed. And during those 4 years, Gerald's fortune of 12,000 pounds dissipated to 3. In a frenzy, he lost 2,000 more on the Paris Bourse. And then one day in May 1870, disaster itself inevitably arrived and found them in a cheap Paris hotel.
I tell you, I haven't got 5 francs altogether. You can feel my pockets if you like.
Well, and what do you expect me to do?
What do I expect you to do? Why don't you write home to your people and get some money out of them? Now you needn't turn pale and begin all that fuss over again. What I'm suggesting is a perfectly reasonable thing. If I haven't got money, I haven't got it. I can't invent it.
Gerald, I feel too tired and unwell to quarrel today.
Will you write to your people?
For money?
Will you write to your people?
No.
Why not?
Because I won't.
If that's the way you're going to talk, all right. But I'm not joking. We shall starve.
Very well, we shall starve.
He snatched his hat and was gone in a second. A moment later, seizing her gloves, she followed him. She saw Gerald walking along the street in the distance. He flourished his cane and glanced into the eyes of all women he passed, under 40. He proceeded down the Rue Montmartre, then suddenly turned into the Rue Croissant. Sophia stopped and pretended to look into a shop window. But when she passed the end of the Rue Croissant, no shadow of Gerald. She felt ill. The doctor had forbidden her coffee, but she needed strength, and she entered a small cafe and ordered a cup.
From the window, I can see Gerald as he emerges at this end of the street. Oh, how good the coffee tastes.
Suddenly, Gerald passed the door, not 6 feet from her. She hurried out in pursuit. She saw him come out of a tobacco shop, strip the band from an expensive cigar, and light it as a millionaire might have lighted it.
And he pretended he had no money.
As he strode on, she paused to pick up the cigar band from the pavement from where he had tossed it. She tracked him as far as the Rue de Rivoli, then lost him. Exhausted to the point of illness, she started slowly back to the hotel on foot. Near the Bourse, a fiacre overtook her. And in the fiacre were Gerald and a woman. Gerald had not seen her. He was talking eagerly to his ornate companion. The fiacre was out of sight in a moment, but Sophia correctly judged the woman. At 9 o'clock that night, she lay ill in bed in the darkness when Gerald returned. He lit a candle and saw her.
Oh, you're there, are you? Won't speak, eh? Agreeable sort of wife. Well, have you made up your mind to do what I told you? I've come back especially to know.
You have.
I'm quite without money. I'm sure your people will be glad to lend us a bit till I get some. Especially as it's a question of you starving as well as me. If I had enough to pay your fare back to your home, I'd pack you off, but I haven't.
Liar.
Oh. I'm a liar, am I? Thanks. Now that I've spent every cent I had on you and am spun, you call me a liar. However, this is going to come to an end. This is. Where's my suitcase? Oh, here it is. This isn't a joke, you know. I give you one more chance. Will you write to your mother, or Constance if you like, or won't you? No answer, eh? Well, you can't say I haven't warned you. Whatever happens to you, you brought it on yourself. Well, I'm off.
Wait. You're forgetting something. Over there on the table.
What is it?
It's the band off the cigar you bought in the Rue Montmartre this afternoon. Before you picked up with that girl.
Oh!
Soon after, Sophia became critically ill and fainted on the street. They carried her into a nearby, somewhat disreputable rooming house, where for many weeks she tossed in a delirium. She was aware of vague shadows attending her, and then one day her brain cleared and she saw a woman sitting by her bed. The woman was crying.
Madame, why are you crying?
Oh, it is nothing.
How long have I been here?
8, 9 weeks.
And you looked after me all that time?
Oui. Oh, I am crying because he has left me. The grand passion of my life. It is not for his money that I care, no. At his age, he is only 25. With a woman like me, one is not generous. But I love him. Oh, I love him. It is at my age, mine, that one knows how to love. Beauty fades, but not the temperament. And to think that 20 years ago I was spending 100,000 francs a year, and now what is to happen to me? More soon or more late, I shall become a charwoman. Yes, a charwoman.
Oh, you must not cry, madame.
Pardon for talking like this. I ought to have shame. Only now they are going to take my furniture. All my beautiful furniture will go for less than 1,000 francs.
Madame, I will buy the furniture at that price and resell it to you when you can pay me.
Oh, you are an angel of charity.
No, I have very little money, so the furniture must be mine until you pay me.
Ah, now respectability, which is the one thing I have desired all my life, shall be mine.
Respectability?
Oui. You will be my partner in letting furnished rooms to respectable persons, and I will obey you in everything. Oh, today I recommence my life. You have saved me.
Madame's regeneration lasted 1 week when she became reconciled with her grand passion and left for Belgium.
All this furniture is mine. I'm saddled with it.
Sophia still possessed about 100 pounds of the money she had stolen from Gerald, and she determined to operate the rooming house alone.
I should like very much to rent the room, madame. But 150 francs? It is very high, no?
You see, there's a piano in it.
But, madame, I do not play the piano.
That is not my fault.
By sheer drudgery, she made the venture prosper. A year passed. There was only one interlude. Monsieur Chirac, who had accompanied Gerald and herself so long ago to witness the execution, took her to dinner one evening. After the adorable cheese was eaten, they sat dreamily.
I love you, madame.
You must not say that, monsieur.
So strong and so beautiful. You are astonishing. No other woman could have drawn herself out of an impossible situation as you have done since the disappearance of your husband. For me, you're a woman unique. I'm sincere.
My poor Chirac.
I shall hope.
My poor Chirac is perfectly useless. Believe me.
No.
Yes.
In the years that followed, she would dream at rare intervals of the kind of passion that would have satisfied her, glowing, but banked down like a fire in some fine chamber of a rich but careful household.
She saw an advertisement of an English pension for sale in the Champs-Élysées quarter. It belonged to some people named Frencham, and they wanted 10,000 francs. Sophia offered 4,000 francs. The Frenchams gave way. They were pained, but they gave way. Thus Sophia found herself proprietress of the Pension Frencham in the cold and correct Rue Laurent. And by 1878, she had turned her 200 pounds into over 10,000. It was at this time that Matthew Peel Swinnerton, a friend of Sophia's nephew Cyril, arrived from England and registered at the Pension Frencham. When he asked for his mail, Sophia turned toward the letter rack, and he saw her face in profile. The nose and the curve of the upper lip were absolutely Cyril's. Taking his mail, he said nothing, but hurried upstairs to his room.
Well, of all the queer things, it's fallen to me to discover the legend for a woman who fled from England before I was born, and of whom nobody knows anything. What news for Cyril, and for Cyril's mother? Why, it's positively a staggering episode.
For a quarter of a century, Sophia had heard no word from Gerald, no word from anybody. It was appalling, the passage of years. And she thought the years would grow more appalling. What she did not know was that young Peel Swinnerton had recognized her and was even then on his way back to England with the astonishing news. Next week, we will see what was to eventuate upon Constance's learning of her sister's whereabouts.
The Old Wives' Tale by Arnold Bennett is one of the world's great novels, brought to you each week by the NBC University of the Air. Listen next week for the fourth and final episode of The Old Wives' Tale. And don't forget that this and many other great books are to be had in your local public library. To enhance your enjoyment of these broadcasts, NBC offers you Herbert Gorman's Handbook of the World's Great Novels. Just send 25 cents with your request to World's Great Novels, Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27, New York. That's World's Great Novels, Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27. The Old Wives' Tale is adapted for radio by Frederick Schlick. The music was composed by Emil Soderstrom, and the orchestra directed by Bernard Berquist. The entire production was under the direction of Homer Heck. Ken Nordine and Sherman Marks were the narrators. Sophia was played by Geraldine Kay, Gerald Scales by Sidney Breeze, Chirac by Donald Gallagher, Madame Foucault by Catherine Payne, The Lodger by Boris Aplan, and Peel Swinnerton by Carl Ziegler. Others were Patty Wilkes, Ted Liss, and Wallace Owen. And this is Dave Garroway. The program came to you from Chicago and has been a presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its independent affiliated stations. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.